The morning was sunny and warm, as if specially ordered. Valeria Klimova stood by the window, watching the city wake up and fill with life. It seemed to her that even nature favored their future marriage with Denis. The wedding was in a week. Exactly 7 days separated her from the cherished yes spoken at the registry office in front of 100 guests. Lara turned around. Denis was still asleep, his face buried in a pillow. She smiled. 5 years of a relationship, 2 years of living together, and now the final chord, a white dress, a suit, rings, and a stamp in their passports. "Dan, it's almost 7, Lara called softly. "You have to be at work in an hour." Denis mumbled something unintelligibly and rolled over. Lara sighed. Morning wake-ups were always torture for him. She walked over to the bed and gently patted his shoulder. "Wake up, sleepyhead. I've already made coffee." Denis grumbled discontentedly, but finally opened his eyes. What time is it almost 7? You have to go to the kids." He reluctantly sat up in bed, rubbing his eyes. "Yeah, I remember. Important meeting today." Lara smiled and headed to the kitchen. This 2-room apartment in a residential area was inherited from her grandmother. The apartment wasn't new, but it was cozy. Lara was proud that she had managed to create a real home atmosphere here, where she had invited Denis 2 years ago. In the kitchen, she took out 2 cups, poured coffee, and started making toast. Her movements were familiar, perfected over a long time. She liked this measured pace, this feeling of stability, and soon, everything would be even better, officially, with a seal husband and wife. Lara thought and smiled. Denis appeared in the kitchen 10 minutes later, already dressed and combed. "To-do list for today?" he asked, sitting down at the table and taking a cup of coffee from Lara's hand. "I need to go to the bridal salon for the final dress fitting," Lara replied, sitting opposite him. "And also call the banquet hall to clarify menu details and—" Their conversation was interrupted by Denis's phone ringing. He glanced at the screen, and his face tensed. "Mom," he explained curtly and got up from the table. Lara nodded. Her relationship with her future mother-in-law was complicated. Alla Petrovna Telnova, an economics professor at a prestigious university, a woman with perfect posture and a sharp gaze, had made it clear from the first meeting that her only son's fiancé must meet high standards. What exactly those standards were? Lara didn't fully understand, but she tried to be polite and restrained in her presence. "Yes, Mom," came from the hallway. "No, I didn't forget. Yes, I'll pass it on. Of course." The conversation lasted about 5 minutes. When Denis returned, his face seemed strained. "Did something happen?" Lara asked. "No. Mom just reminded me about meeting her sister tomorrow and asked about gifts for the guests. You didn't forget." "I didn't forget," Lara replied. "The souvenirs are already ordered. I'll pick them up the day after tomorrow." Denis nodded, but something strange flashed in his eyes. Lara was already used to it. Every time after talking to his mother, Denis became a little different, as if switching between 2 modes. "Okay, I gotta go," he said, finishing his coffee. "See you tonight?" He kissed Lara and headed for the exit. "Have a good day," she called after him as the door closed. Lara sighed. Lately, she had been catching herself thinking more and more often that the wedding caused her not only joy, but also anxiety. Not because of organizational matters, everything was going smoothly there, but rather because of a growing feeling that Denis was holding something back, something related to his mother. Shaking off the disturbing thoughts, Lara began to get ready. It was going to be a busy day. She quickly washed the dishes, made the bed, and started gathering the documents needed for her trip to the bridal salon. Before leaving, she decided to check her email. Maybe a confirmation from the photographer had arrived. Denis's laptop lay on the table in the living room. He didn't mind her using his tech. After all, they had no secrets from each other. Lara turned on the laptop, logged into her email, and saw a message from the photographer, all confirmed as agreed. Breathing a sigh of relief, she was about to turn off the computer when her gaze caught on a folder on the desktop wedding documents. Lara was surprised. Usually, all wedding-related files were kept in a shared cloud folder, but she hadn't seen this one before. Curiosity got the better of her. Lara opened the folder and found several files there. One of them was called K.S. Klimova. What's K.S.? She wondered, opening the document. Before her, a table with 236 points unfolded. At first, Lara didn't even understand what it was, but then she saw the title, Compatibility Criteria, Dennis Telnov's Wife. Lara felt a shiver run down her spine. She began to read. 1. Height 165, 175 cm. Klimova, phi, 168 cm. 2. Weight 50, 58 kg. Klimova v 56 kg. 3. Waist circumference not more than 65 cm. Klimova v 62 cm. 4. Bust C cup. Klimova v C cup. 5. Education higher, preferably economic or legal. Klimova v higher, philological. 6. Foreign languages, at least 2. Klimova Vide, English fluent. French basic. Lara scrolled down the table. The list went on and on. There were points about income, household management skills, culinary abilities, preferences in literature and music, political views, family planning, and even, Lara felt the blood rush to her face, sexual preferences and skills. Each point had a checkmark or a cross, as well as a percentage of compliance. At the end of the table, an overall score was displayed Klimova vi 68% compliance. Lara was numb. She couldn't believe her eyes. Was this some kind of joke or madness? Dennis was evaluating her like a commodity, like a candidate for a vacancy. Still scrolling in a state of shock, she reached the section, Relations with Husband's Family, in there. Under number 42, she found a point that literally made her sick. 42. In the presence of my mother, you must stand until she permits you to sit. Klimova v. does not comply. Lara leaned back in her chair, stunned. What kind of nonsense? What kind of medieval thinking? Standing until your mother-in-law permits you to sit. This was some kind of humiliation, some kind of slavery. And what did does not comply mean? When and how was this even checked? She continued to review the document, and the horror grew. Below the table were comments. Note Klimova v has good basic indicators, but behavior correction is required in relation to the husband's mother and more active participation in Telnov family events. Recommendations for increasing KS to 85% minimally acceptable level for marriage, see separate file. Lara, in a daze, opened the file with recommendations. It detailed steps for behavior correction, including regular one-on-one meetings with the mother-in-law to learn Telnov family traditions, etiquette and social behavior courses, wardrobe adjustment according to family status, and even consultations on proper organization of the husband's time. Lara's head was spinning. She felt nausea rising. How could the man she had lived with for 2 years, the man she was about to marry, have compiled such a... There were no words. Lara returned to the folder and found several more files, K.S. Orlova, K.S. Mironova, K.S. Blagova. Her legs gave out. With trembling hands, she opened the first one she saw, the same table, but with a different name and different scores. Only now did it dawn on her. She wasn't just being evaluated, she was being compared to other women, as if they were choosing the most suitable candidate, like at a casting call. At the very bottom of the folder, she found one more file, Selection Methodology Final Version, jointly with AP. Alla Petrovna, Dennis's mother. They compiled this together. They evaluated her together, like livestock at a market. Lara closed the laptop and pressed her palms to her face. Something inside her broke. 5 years of a relationship, thousands of conversations, hundreds of declarations of love, And then a compatibility table. 68% suitability. She didn't know how long she sat there in a daze, thoughts swirling chaotically in her head. What to do? How to react? Pretend she hadn't seen anything or demand an explanation. "Tell him everything you think and leave," whispered one voice inside. "Maybe it's some kind of misunderstanding. Let him explain," argued another. Lyra remembered their first meeting, 5 years ago, at a literary evening. Dinas came with a friend. By chance. She was reading her poems. He approached her after the performance, said he had never heard anything more beautiful. They talked until morning about books, music, travel. He seemed so sincere, so real. And now it turned out that all this time he was testing her, evaluating her according to some wild scale, consulting with his mommy whether she was suitable. Lyra felt anger rising within her. No, this couldn't be left unanswered. She had to know the truth. She had to hear from him what all this meant. She picked up her phone and dialed Dennis. The phone rang. Long rings. Finally. He answered. "Lyra, I'm in a meeting. Something urgent." "Very urgent." Her voice sounded unexpectedly calm. "We need to talk today." "Did something happen?" His voice held concern. "Yes, it happened. Come straight home after work. I'll be waiting." She hung up without waiting for an answer. Then she slowly walked to the closet where the wedding supplies were kept. She took out the box with invitations, menu samples, a folder with budget calculations. All of this suddenly seemed so trivial, insignificant, some kind of absurd theater. A theater in which she, it turned out, played a role without even knowing it. 68%. Lara chuckled bitterly. I wonder how many percent are needed for complete happiness, and who sets this scale? She sat on the sofa and waited. The clock slowly ticked down the time until Dennis's return, until the moment her life might change forever. The clock showed 6 p.m. Lyra sat in the armchair opposite the front door, hands folded in her lap. She had spent the entire day in a daze, canceling the dress fitting and the meeting with the decorator. Again and again, that monstrous table with points and percentages popped into her mind, like a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. The lock clicked. Lyra straightened, feeling her heart pound faster. Dennis entered the apartment, loosening his tie as he walked. "Hi. What's the urgency?" He smiled, but noticing the expression on Lyra's face, he froze in the doorway. "Did something happen?" "Something did happen." She pointed to the coffee table where the open laptop lay. "Explain to me what this is." Dennis slowly approached, looked at the screen, and his face changed. The smile disappeared, replaced by a mixture of surprise and alarm. "You were rummaging through my files," he asked, and to Lyra, it seemed there was more indignation than shame in his voice. "I was checking my email, the photographer's confirmation, and I accidentally saw the folder with wedding documents." Lyra tried to speak evenly, though inside everything was seething. "So, what is this?" "Dennis, explain it to me." He took a step back, nervously rubbing his chin. "It's just my notes." "Notes." Lyra rose from the armchair. "You call this notes a table of 236 points where you evaluate my weight, height, education, where you compare me to some other women, where you write that I must stand before your mother until she permits me to sit." Dennis sighed heavily and sat on the sofa, as if his legs couldn't hold him. "You don't understand. It's not what you think. And what should I think enlighten me? It's a method, a rational approach to choosing a life partner." He said it as if explaining the obvious. "You don't think people choose partners randomly, do you? Everyone has criteria." Lyra looked at him with disbelief. "Criteria, 236 points with percentages of compliance. You call that criteria, listen." Dennis straightened up, a mentoring tone appearing in his voice. "You also chose me based on some criteria, didn't you? You like how I look, my education, my job, my views. I just formalized this process, made it objective." "Objective," Lyra sneered. "And that's why you consulted with your mom, and that's why my compatibility coefficient is only 68%? Dennis winced. "That's a high indicator. Actually, for most girls, it doesn't exceed 50. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know I should be proud." The bitterness in her voice turned to anger. "And those other names in the folder, who are they, your backup options in case I don't reach 85%? He looked away, and his silence was more eloquent than any answer. "My God," Lara exhaled. "So it's true. You compared us. Chose—" "It's not entirely like that." Dennis raised his eyes to her. "You see, it's like if you came to work for a serious company. There's also a selection process, tests, interviews. Nobody makes such important decisions on a whim. Marriage isn't a job at a company." "Marriage is not a job at a company," Lyra exclaimed. "I'm not a candidate for a position. I'm a person. Dennis, a living person with my feelings, not a set of characteristics in a table. That's exactly why I compiled the table, to make sure we're compatible," he said, as if explaining simple truths to a child. "So our marriage would be successful? Don't you want the same?" Lyra shook her head. It felt like she was talking to a complete stranger. "And who decides what criteria are important? You, your mother." She suddenly remembered another point. "By the way, explain point 42 to me. What kind of medieval nonsense is that?" Dennis sighed. "It's just a sign of respect. My mother is an old-fashioned person. She values traditions and subordination." "Subordination?" Lara couldn't believe her ears. "I'm not her subordinate, and I'm not going to stand at attention in front of her like a schoolgirl." "See, that's why your coefficient isn't ideal," Dennis said with annoyance. "You don't understand the importance of family traditions, and you don't understand the importance of respect and equality in relationships." Lyra countered. "Tell me, Dennis, did she come up with this whole evaluation system?" "Your mother." He paused, then reluctantly admitted, "We developed it together. Mom. She always wanted the best for me, and she knows people." "Oh, yes. I see how well she knows them." Lyra walked over to the laptop and opened the table again. "Let's see what else is here. Point 87. The wife must consider the mother-in-law's opinion a priority when making family decisions." Point 112. The wife must inform the mother-in-law of all major purchases. Point 156. Oh, this one is especially lovely when planning a vacation. Priority is given to joint holidays with the husband's parents. She slammed the laptop shut and turned to Dennis. "This isn't a marriage. It's some kind of slavery. You want me to become an appendage to your family? A spineless doll who will obey your mother in everything?" "You're dramatizing everything." Dennis stood up and walked toward her. "It's just a structured approach to family life. Clear rules that will help avoid conflicts." "Conflicts with whom?" "With your mother." Lara stepped back, not letting him get closer. "And what about my parents, my family, my traditions?" Dennis hesitated. "Well, your parents don't particularly insist on observing any traditions?" "Because they respect my independence," Lyra exclaimed. "Because they see me as an adult, not a guinea pig for their experiments." At that moment, the doorbell rang, sharp and insistent. Lyra and Dennis exchanged glances. "Are you expecting someone?" Lyra asked. "No." Dennis frowned. "I'll see who it is." He went to the door and looked through the peephole. His shoulders tensed. "Mom," he said quietly and turned to Lara. "It's my mother." "Perfect." Lara chuckled bitterly. "The perfect time for a visit." Dennis hesitated, hand on the doorknob. "Open it," Lara said. I really want to talk to the author of this masterpiece. He reluctantly opened the door. Alla Petrovna stood on the threshold, a tall, trim woman in a strict suit. Her dark hair was pulled back in a perfect bun, and her gaze, as always, was assessing. "Good evening," she said, entering the apartment without an invitation. "I called you, Dennis, but you didn't answer. I decided to drop by." Her gaze settled on Lara, and disapproval flashed in her eyes. "Valeria, you look upset. Did something happen?" "Oh, yes." Lara crossed her arms over her chest. "Something indeed happened. I found a very interesting document, a table that evaluates my suitability to be your son's wife." Alla Petrovna froze. Her gaze darted to Dennis. "You showed her—" Her voice was filled with undisguised indignation. "No, she found it herself," Dennis replied, looking down. "In my own home, by the way," Lara added, "on the computer of the man I trusted." Alla Petrovna straightened even further. If that was possible. "That was confidential information, not intended for your eyes," she said coldly. "But since you've seen it, I hope you understand the seriousness of the situation. Your compatibility coefficient leaves much to be desired." Lara couldn't believe her ears. "Seriousness of the situation? You think the problem is my coefficient, not that you and your son compiled a dossier on me like a criminal. Don't dramatize." Alla Petrovna waved her hand dismissively. "This is a standard procedure. Dennis is a promising young man from a good family. Naturally, his choice of a life partner must be carefully considered." "Considered by you." Lara felt the blood rush to her face. "Do you think it's normal to interfere in your adult son's private life?" "I'm not interfering. I'm helping." Alla Petrovna said this in a tone that brooked no argument. Maternal experience and intuition are indispensable in such matters. Who, if not a mother, knows what kind of woman will make her son happy? Maybe the son himself, Lara suggested. He seems to be an adult capable of making decisions. Dennis always valued my advice. Alla Petrovna turned to her son. "Isn't that right?" "Dear." Dennis stood, looking at the floor like a mischievous schoolboy. "Yes, Mom, but I think we need to discuss everything calmly. Lara is upset." "Upset?" Lara interrupted him. "I'm in shock. Dennis, I found out that the man I was going to marry has been evaluating me all this time on some insane scale, compiled together with Mommy Dearest, tone?" Alla Petrovna said sharply. "Watch your tone, young lady. That's another point where you fall short of the standard inability to control yourself." "You know what?" Lara turned to face her. "I'm not taking an exam or an interview. I'm in my own apartment, and I'll speak as I see fit." "See, Dennis." Alla Petrovna turned to her son. "This is exactly what I was talking about. Lack of respect for elders, inability to accept constructive criticism." "This isn't criticism. It's an attempt at control," Lara retorted. "You want to control our lives. I want my son to be happy." Alla Petrovna cut her off. "And for that, he needs the right wife, a wife who understands her role and place in the family." "And what place do you assign me in this family?" Lara asked. "Judging by the table, somewhere between a housekeeper and an incubator for grandchildren, with mandatory reverence for the mother-in-law. Don't distort my words." Alla Petrovna pursed her lips. "We just want a structured approach to family life, clear rules that will help avoid conflicts." "You're repeating word for word what Dennis said," Lara noted. "He even thinks in your phrases. Are you aware that he's an adult man?" "I'm aware that he's my son," Alla Petrovna snapped. "And I know what's best for him. And now, let's get to business. Since you've learned about the compatibility coefficient, we need to discuss how to improve it." Lara laughed, a bitter, disbelieving laugh. "Are you serious? You think that after all this, I'll try to meet your insane criteria?" "If you truly love Dennis, yes," Alla Petrovna said firmly. Love is not only a feeling, but also working on oneself, striving to become better for the sake of your partner. Better by whose standards by yours? Lyra shook her head. No, this isn't love. It's training. She turned to Dennis, who had been silent all this time, looking from his mother to his fiancé. Tell me honestly, Dennis, is this really what you want? For your wife to be a well-trained puppet, conforming to your mother's idea of the ideal? Dennis fidgeted under her gaze. I just want everything to be right, he said finally. So we have a good, strong family without quarrels and conflicts. Without conflicts with whom? With your mother. Lyra felt despair rising within her. And what about me? My feelings, my desires, my individuality? Do they mean anything? Of course they mean something. Dennis took a step toward her. It's just that compromises are needed. You could adapt a little. Adapt. Lyra stepped back. To what? To this table, to your mother. Who thinks I should stand before her like a schoolgirl at a blackboard? You're dramatizing again, Alla Petrovna interjected. It's just one point that's easy to fulfill. And the other 235, Lyra asked. Are they also easy to fulfill? I have to become a completely different person. Not different, but a better version of yourself, Alla Petrovna corrected. There's nothing humiliating about that. Lyra suddenly felt terribly tired. She looked at these two people, the man she loved, and the woman who clearly had enormous influence over him, and realized she was talking to a wall. You know what? She said quietly. I think we all need to calm down and think about the situation. This is too much. Too much for one evening. A reasonable decision. Alla Petrovna nodded. I was just about to suggest meeting tomorrow at our house. A family council. We'll discuss everything in detail. Make an action plan. Action plan, Lyra repeated. Of course. There's a week left until the wedding, but we can still fix a lot. Alla Petrovna took out her phone from her purse. I'll invite my sister, she's a psychologist, and Dennis's cousin with his wife. They have an excellent marriage. There's a lot to learn from them. I think around 6 p.m. would be convenient for everyone. Lyra couldn't believe her ears. Instead of apologies, she was planning some kind of trial over her. A family council where her shortcomings would be discussed. Mom, maybe we shouldn't rush, Dennis said uncertainly. Lyra needs time. There's no time. Alla Petrovna cut him off. The wedding is in a week, and I won't allow you to marry a woman who doesn't meet the minimum requirements. Either we raise the coefficient, or… She didn't finish the phrase, but the meaning was clear. Lyra felt a lump in her throat. She looked at Dennis, searching in his eyes for at least some protest, some desire to protect her. But he stood with his head down, accepting his mother's dictate as a given. So be it, Alla Petrovna said, putting away her phone. Tomorrow at 6 p.m. at our house. Bring that folder, Dennis. We'll need to discuss each point. And Valeria, she turned to Lyra, I expect a constructive attitude. If you truly want to become part of our family, you'll have to make an effort. Lyra remained silent. Something inside her had finally broken. The man she loved, the man she was going to marry, not only allowed his mother to speak to her in such a tone, but also clearly considered it normal himself. I have to go, Alla Petrovna said, looking at her watch. Dennis, walk me to the car. We need to discuss something privately. Dennis nodded, casting a guilty glance at Lyra. I'll be back soon, he said quietly. We'll talk. Lyra didn't answer. She stood with her arms crossed over her chest, watching them leave the apartment. When the door closed behind them, she slowly walked to the window, downstairs, by the entrance. Alla Petrovna was energetically talking to her son, gesticulating. Dennis nodded like an obedient schoolboy. Then she got into the car and drove away, and he remained standing, watching her leave. Lyra turned away from the window, Only one thought spun in her head. What now? Go to this family council. Let them discuss her like a commodity in a market, or put an end to it now, without waiting for further humiliation. She walked to the closet where her wedding dress hung in a garment bag. She stroked it through the fabric. So many hopes, so many plans, and all shattered by a table with 236 points. The lock clicked. Dennis was back. Lyra turned around. He stood in the doorway with a guilty expression on his face. "I'm sorry about Mom," he said. "She can be persistent." Persistent? Lyra shook her head. That's not persistence. Dennis, that's control. Total control over your life. And you let her. She wants what's best. He walked closer. She just has her methods, but she genuinely cares about my happiness. And what about my happiness? Lyra asked softly. Does anyone care about that too? Dennis was silent for a moment, then said, Of course. I care. And Mom does too. It's just that we see it differently. But we can find a compromise. If you come tomorrow, we'll discuss everything calmly, without emotions. Without emotions! Lyra gave a bitter laugh. You're suggesting I calmly discuss with your relatives how to turn me into an ideal wife according to Mommy's standards. You don't see anything humiliating about that. It's not humiliating, Dennis argued. It's constructive, like a business meeting. We're not at work, Lyra exclaimed. This is our life, our relationship, not a project, not a business plan, not a corporate strategy. She walked up to him. Tell me honestly, do you really think this table, these percentages, is this normal? That evaluating a person you supposedly love on a scale from 0 to 100 is a display of care? Dennis hesitated. I just wanted to be sure. Marriage is a serious step. And you decided to play it safe by comparing me to other candidates. Lyra shook her head. How many were there? Dennis, how many women did you test before settling on me? He looked away. That doesn't matter. I chose you. Yes, it does, Lyra insisted. I want to know the truth. How many? Dennis sighed. 7, including you. Lyra felt nausea rising in her throat. 7 women, and they all went through this test, this table. Yes. Dennis tried to take her hand, but she pulled away. But you were the best, the most suitable, with a coefficient of 68%. Not very impressive, is it? Lyra chuckled bitterly. It's a good indicator, Dennis argued. Above average, and we can improve it if you make an effort. Lyra looked at him, not recognizing him. How could the man she had lived with for 2 years turn out to be such a stranger? And what if I don't want to? She asked softly. What if I don't want to make an effort to meet the criteria your mother invented? Dennis frowned. Then that means you're not ready to work on the relationship, that you don't value what we've built. No, Dennis. Lyra shook her head. It means I respect myself, that I'm not going to change to fit someone else's absurd standards. She walked to the closet and took out her wedding dress in its garment bag. You know, I think we need to postpone the wedding. Dennis paled. What? No, Lyra, that's impossible. Everything's already paid for. Guests are invited. Financial matters can be resolved, she said calmly, and send apologies to the guests. But my mom. Exactly, Dennis. Your mom. Lyra placed the dress on the sofa. Everything revolves around her. Her opinion, her expectations, her demands. I can't and don't want to live with this. You're exaggerating her influence. He tried to argue. She's just helping us. No, Dennis, Lyra interrupted him. She's manipulating you. The next morning was surprisingly calm. Lyra woke up early on the living room sofa. She couldn't sleep in the same bed with Dennis after yesterday. He had tried to talk to her late into the night, but the conversation went in circles, justifications, attempts to devalue her feelings, persuasion to come to the family council. She watched the sunbeams break through the curtains. Her mind was empty and heavy at the same time, as if all thoughts had turned into a thick fog. Lyra heard Dennis bustling in the kitchen, making breakfast. He was probably trying to appease her, his typical tactic after disagreements, not a genuine apology, but an attempt to smooth over the conflict with material gestures. "Good morning." Dennis appeared in the doorway with a tray. "I made your favorite pancakes." Lyra sat up on the sofa, smoothing her disheveled hair. "Thanks, but I'm not hungry." "Lyra, we need to talk." He placed the tray on the coffee table and sat next to her. "Oh, I thought all night about what happened." "And what conclusions did you come to?" she asked, not hiding her skepticism. Dennis paused, choosing his words. "I understand that this table upset you, but you have to understand, it's just a tool, a way to make sure we're compatible." "By whose criteria?" Lyra crossed her arms over her chest. "Who decided what was important and what wasn't?" "Well, me and Mom, of course." He said it as if the answer was obvious. "Me and Mom," Lyra echoed. "Do you hear yourself? Why is your mother involved in choosing your wife? Why is she compiling criteria by which I should live?" "You're oversimplifying." Dennis frowned. "Mom just wants the best for me. She helps me avoid mistakes." "And I, in your opinion, am a mistake?" Lyra asked directly. "No, of course not." He took her hand, but she immediately pulled it away. "You scored the most points. You're the best candidate." "How lucky for me." Lyra chuckled bitterly. "I won a competition I didn't even know about." "Listen." Dennis leaned forward. "Let's just go to Mom's today. You'll talk to her. She'll explain everything calmly, rationally. She's a very smart woman. Lyra, she's achieved a lot in life. And that's why she should dictate how we live. Not dictate, but help." Dennis corrected. "Her experience? No." Lyra shook her head. "I'm not going to your family council. I'm not going to sit there while relatives I barely know discuss my shortcomings." Dennis paled. "But Lyra, everything is already organized. Mom called everyone. They're coming." "That's your problem." She cut him off. "I didn't agree to this circus." He nervously ran a hand through his hair. "Understand. If you don't come, it will only make things worse. Mom will think you're disrespecting the family." "And what about respect for me?" Lyra got up from the sofa. "Does anyone think about that?" Dennis's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and sighed. "It's Mom." "Of course." Lyra shook her head. "Go answer it. Report the situation." Dennis answered the call, turning away to the window. His voice immediately changed, becoming softer, more subservient. "Yes, Mom. No, we're still home, trying to convince her. Yes, I understand, but she—" Lyra couldn't take it anymore and left the room. Listening to him discuss her with his mother was beyond her strength. She locked herself in the bathroom, turned on the water, and leaned her hands on the sink, looking at her reflection in the mirror. "What am I doing?" a thought flashed. Was she really going to tie her life to a man who couldn't make a single decision without his mommy's approval, who evaluated her like a commodity on a shelf? A knock on the door jolted her. "Lyra!" Dennis's voice sounded strained. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" She opened the door. Dennis stood with his phone in his hand, a hunted look on his face. "Mom wants to talk to you." Lyra couldn't believe her ears. "Seriously, you think I'll talk to her after yesterday?" "Please." His voice was pleading. "She just wants to explain everything nicely." Lyra sighed and took the phone. "Hello, Valeria." Alla Petrovna's voice was dry and businesslike. "I understand your confusion. Yesterday, everything didn't go as it should have, but I suggest we start with a clean slate. Tonight at 6:00 p.m. We'll have a calm, constructive conversation. No accusations, just a rational discussion. Discussion of what? Exactly? Lyra asked. Your compatibility with our family? Of course. Alla Petrovna replied as if nothing had happened. Together, we'll identify areas for improvement and create an action plan. Lyra felt everything boiling inside her. You don't understand, do you? I'm not going to improve myself according to your criteria. I'm not at a casting call. A pause hung on the other end of the line. I see you're still under the influence of emotions, Alla Petrovna finally said. That's understandable, but adults are capable of putting emotions aside and thinking rationally. You are an adult. Valeria. This condescending tone was the last straw. You know what I changed my mind. I'll come, Lyra said. Today at 6:00. I'll be looking forward to it. Excellent. Alla Petrovna's voice held satisfaction. A reasonable decision. Lyra hung up and returned the phone to Dennis. You changed your mind, he asked hopefully. Yes, Lyra replied curtly. I want to hear what your mother and the other relatives have to say. I want to see this whole family council in action. Dennis exhaled with relief. I knew you'd understand this is the right decision. Lyra, you'll see, after tonight's conversation, everything will fall into place. Lyra looked at him, not recognizing him. How could she have spent 5 years not noticing this dependence, this willingness to obey his mother's will, or had she simply not wanted to see, I'll go get ready, she said. And you'd better go to work. You're late. Dennis beamed. Yes, right, I'll go. See you at Mom's at 6:00, okay? He leaned in to kiss her, but Lyra pulled away. Until tonight, Dennis. After he left, Lyra stood in the middle of the apartment for a long time, unsure what to do. Part of her wanted to just pack her things and leave while he was gone, disappear from his life without explanation. But another part wanted to say everything that had been simmering, to put an end to it properly, looking him in the eye. She picked up her phone and dialed her friend Nina. Hi, she said when Nina answered. Do you have time to meet? I really need to talk. When Lyra entered the Telnovs' apartment exactly at 6 p.m., she was met with an unusual sight. The living room had been rearranged into something like a conference hall. Chairs were arranged in a semicircle, a carafe of water and glasses on the coffee table. And on the wall, Lyra couldn't believe her eyes on the wall, hung a screen projecting that very table with criteria. The judges were already gathered in the room. Alla Petrovna, in a strict dark blue suit, presided at the head of the improvised circle. Beside her sat her sister Elena, a psychologist with a notebook in her hands. Denis's cousin Vitaly with his wife Olga, whom the Telnovs always held up as an example of an ideal daughter-in-law, and some elderly man Lyra had never seen before. Denis stood by the window, nervously fidgeting with his tie. Seeing Lyra, he brightened and rushed to her. You came, he exhaled with relief. I was afraid you'd change your mind. I keep my word, Lyra replied calmly. Alla Petrovna rose from her seat. Valeria, I'm glad you showed good sense. She gestured to an empty chair in the center of the semicircle. Please, have a seat. We're ready to begin. Lyra surveyed the assembled group. They all looked at her with different expressions. Elena with the professional interest of a psychologist. Olga with thinly veiled superiority. Vitaly with indifference. The elderly man with undisguised distrust. Before we begin, Lyra said, not moving from her spot, I would like to know who all these people are and why they are here. Alla Petrovna pursed her lips. This is our family. Valeria, people who wish Denis happiness and are ready to help you become a worthy wife for him. I see, Lyra nodded. And who is this gentleman? She gestured to the elderly man. That's Gennady Pavlovich, my uncle. Denis replied instead of his mother. He's a family counselor, A psychologist, Lyra clarified. No. Gennady Pavlovich straightened. I'm a former military man, 30 years married to one woman. I know how to build a strong family on Army principles. I bet you do. Lyra couldn't help but interject. Exactly. He nodded seriously. Discipline, subordination, order. Lyra barely suppressed a nervous laugh. This was more absurd than she had expected. Let's begin. Alla Petrovna clapped her hands. Valeria, please sit down. Lyra walked to the indicated chair and sat, feeling like she was being interrogated. Dennis awkwardly settled to the side, not in the circle, but as if between two camps. So, Alla Petrovna began, as you know, we are gathered here to discuss Valeria's readiness to join our family. As the analysis shows, her current compatibility coefficient is 68%, which is below the minimally acceptable threshold of 85%. She clicked a remote, and the screen displayed a detailed breakdown of the criteria with red and green markers. As we can see, the physical parameters are generally satisfactory. Alla Petrovna continued, pointing a laser pointer at the corresponding lines. Education is acceptable, though not optimal. The main problem areas are behavioral patterns, attitude towards family traditions, and, of course, interaction with senior family members. Lyra couldn't believe her ears. She was indeed being dissected point by point, like a test subject. She glanced at Dennis. He sat with his eyes down, clearly avoiding her gaze. I believe, Elena interjected, tapping her pen on her notebook, that the root of the problem lies in incorrect behavioral attitudes. Valeria grew up in a family where there was no clear hierarchy, so it's difficult for her to accept structured relationships. Completely agree. Gennady Pavlovich chimed in. Modern youth don't understand the importance of discipline. A wife must know her place in the family. And what place, in your opinion, should a wife know? Lyra asked, maintaining her outward calm. A place next to her husband, but half a step behind. Gennady Pavlovich answered confidently. To support, but not overshadow. To advise, but not dictate. And, of course, to respect his parents as her own, even more so. Interesting concept, Lyra nodded. And the husband, should he also respect his wife's parents? Of course. Gennady Pavlovich shrugged. Within reasonable limits. And what are reasonable limits? Lyra continued. For example, standing before them until they permit you to sit, does that fall within reasonable limits? An awkward silence fell in the room. Alla Petrovna pursed her lips. You're dramatizing again, Valeria? It's just a sign of respect. A sign of respect. Lyra raised her eyebrows. Forcing an adult woman to stand like a naughty schoolgirl, that's disrespect. That's humiliation. See, Dennis. Alla Petrovna turned to the others. This is exactly what I was talking about. Inability to accept constructive criticism, denial of family traditions. Excuse me, but that's not a family tradition, Lyra countered. It's a personal whim disguised as tradition. It seems to me. Olga, the ideal daughter-in-law, interjected. Valeria simply doesn't understand the importance of adapting to a new family. When I married Vitaly, I adopted all the Telnov family traditions and never regretted it. And how does that work in your family? Lyra inquired. Do you also stand before your mother-in-law? Olga became flustered. Well, not exactly, but I always listen to her opinion. I always consult with her before important decisions, even if those decisions concern only you and your husband. A family is a single organism, Vitaly pronounced didactically. You can't separate a couple from the older generation, especially when the older generation possesses wisdom and experience. Lyra shook her head. A family is not an organism, but a union of equal people respecting each other's boundaries. What exactly do you mean by boundaries? Elena asked, making notes in her notebook. Perhaps you have trust issues. I don't have trust issues, Lyra replied calmly. I have issues with the fact that my fiancé and his mother compiled a 236-point dossier on me, evaluated me like a commodity, and now they've assembled a family tribunal to discuss my shortcomings. This is not a tribunal, but a constructive discussion, Alla Petrovna corrected, and not a dossier, but a methodology for assessing compatibility. Call it whatever you want. The essence doesn't change. Lyra turned to Dennis. Do you really think this is normal? What's happening right now? Dennis looked cornered. I think that the family wants to help us build a strong relationship. Build or rebuild, Lyra clarified. Rebuild me according to your standards. Not rebuild, but improve, Alla Petrovna interjected. Like a diamond that needs cutting to become a brilliant... And who decided that I need cutting? Lyra turned to her. By what right? By the right of a mother who wishes happiness for her son. Alla Petrovna cut her off. And by the right of a person with great life experience. Life experience doesn't give the right to control someone else's life, Lyra argued. Even the life of one's own son, especially an adult son. So that's it. Alla Petrovna folded her arms across her chest. You want to separate Dennis from his family, tear him from his roots. I don't want to separate anyone from anything, Lyra said tiredly. I just want normal, healthy relationships, without tables, without percentages, without family councils. So you refuse to work on yourself, Elena clarified. This indicates low motivation for personal growth. Lyra felt her patience wearing thin. I'm not refusing to work on myself. I'm refusing to adapt to someone else's imposed standards. There's a difference. See, Dennis. Alla Petrovna turned to everyone present. Unwillingness to compromise. Another point where the coefficient drops. Compromise is when both sides make concessions, Lyra noted. Not when one side completely submits to the demands of the other. I see only one solution. Gennady Pavlovich intervened. Valeria needs to take a course for young wives. There's an excellent seminar led by my wife, 3 months of intensive work, and the girl will be like silk. Lyra couldn't help but laugh. Like silk? Seriously, you're talking about me like a stubborn horse that needs to be broken in? No one wants to break you in, Alla Petrovna said with feigned patience. We want to help you become better. Better for whom? Lyra asked. For Dennis, for you, or for myself? For everyone, Alla Petrovna replied confidently. When you become an ideal wife, everyone wins. Dennis gets a worthy partner, you a stable family, and we a worthy continuation of the lineage. Continuation of the lineage! Lyra couldn't believe her ears. You talk as if we're in the Middle Ages, or I'm a broodmare. Again, these modern feminist antics, Gennady Pavlovich grumbled. In our time, women knew their place. And what place? Lyra asked. In the kitchen, in the bedroom, or just half a step behind the husband so as not to overshadow him? Don't exaggerate. Alla Petrovna chided her. We live in a modern world. No one is against your career or self-realization. It's just that family should come first. Family, yes, Lyra agreed. But family is husband and wife, not husband, wife, and mother-in-law who decides how they should live. You're too categorical, Elena sighed. This indicates personality immaturity, and compiling tables to evaluate a person is certainly a sign of maturity. Lyra countered. She turned to Dennis, who had been silent all this time, helplessly looking from her to his mother. Dennis, tell me honestly, do you really want me to change, to become like what's in this table? He hesitated, clearly not knowing what to answer. I want us to have a good family, for everyone to be happy. Everyone who Lyra insisted, you Me and your mother. Well, yes. Is that bad? No, it's not bad. Lyra shook her head. What's bad is that in your idea of happiness, I have to completely submit to your mother's will, become her copy, or rather, her puppet. No one wants to make you a puppet. Alla Petrovna intervened. It's just that there are certain rules of family life that you must accept. Must? Lyra raised her eyebrows. To whom? To our family. Alla Petrovna said firmly. If you want to become a part of it. Lyra slowly rose from the chair. You know what I think. I've had enough of this constructive discussion. I've heard enough. You're leaving. Dennis jumped to his feet. But we're not finished yet. Oh, I think we are. Lyra looked him straight in the eyes. There will be no wedding. Dennis, I won't marry a man who allows his mother and relatives to discuss me like a commodity in a market. A heavy silence fell in the room. Alla Petrovna paled. You can't just cancel the wedding like that, she said, raising her voice. Everything's paid for. Guests are invited. What will people say? That's your problem. Lyra shrugged. You love to control everything. So control this. Explain to the guests that the bride wasn't good enough. Didn't score the right percentages. Lyra, please. Dennis grabbed her hand. Let's calm down and discuss everything. I'm sure we can find a compromise. What compromise? Dennis. Lyra pulled her hand away. You hid from me for 5 years that you were evaluating me on some insane scale, that you were comparing me to other women, that you were consulting with your mom whether I was suitable for you. What compromise can there be after this? But I chose you, he exclaimed. Of all the candidates, I chose you. A lingering silence hung in the room. Lyra stood with clenched fists, watching Alla Petrovna's face gradually turn crimson. Elena frantically scribbled in her notebook, and Gennady Pavlovich scowled angrily, stroking his gray mustache. You can't just leave like that. Alla Petrovna was the first to break the silence. Her voice trembled with barely suppressed anger. This is unacceptable, irresponsible, selfish. Lyra slowly turned to her. Selfish, she repeated quietly. You organized this trial to discuss my shortcomings. You compiled a list of requirements by which I must live, and I'm the selfish one. Yes, Alla Petrovna rose from her seat. Because you only think about yourself, about your imagined grievances. What about Dennis? What about his future? Mom, please. Dennis tried to intervene, but Alla Petrovna waved him away like an annoying fly. No, son, I won't be silent anymore. I tried to be diplomatic, tried to find a compromise, but this girl... She emphasized the word as if referring to something indecent. She doesn't even want to try to be worthy of you. Worthy of him. Lyra felt real fury boiling inside her. And have you considered that maybe he isn't worthy of me? A man who secretly evaluates his fiancée on 200 points, who can't make a decision without Mommy's approval. How dare you? Alla Petrovna was indignant. My son is a brilliant young man with excellent prospects. He could have chosen anyone. Then let him choose, Lyra replied calmly. You still have 6 other candidates on your list, don't you? Maybe one of them will score 100%. She turned towards the door, but Dennis blocked her way. Lyra, please. Panic was in his eyes. Let's not make hasty decisions. We've been together for 5 years. Lyra, are you really ready to throw everything away because of one misunderstanding? Misunderstanding? Lyra looked at him with disbelief. You call this a misunderstanding. You deceived me all these years. Dennis, you made me believe you loved me for who I am, and all this time you were waiting for me to conform to your ideal. I truly love you, he exclaimed. This table changes nothing. It changes everything, Lyra said quietly. It changes everything because now I know who you really are, and that's not the person I wanted to marry. She tried to walk around him, but Dennis grabbed her arm. "You can't just leave like that," he repeated his mother's words. "I won't allow it. Won't allow it." Lyra pulled her arm free. "You're not in a position to allow or forbid anything, especially me." "If you leave now," his voice hardened, "you'll regret it. The wedding is in 4 days. Everything's paid for. Guests are invited. I won't cancel it just because you're having a tantrum." "This isn't a tantrum. Dennis," Lyra shook her head. "This is self-respect, a quality that is obviously missing from your criteria table." She turned to the others, who were watching the scene with varying degrees of shock and disapproval. "Thank you all for this enlightening evening. I've learned a lot about Dennis, about your family, and about myself." "Wait." Alla Petrovna suddenly changed tactics. Her voice became softer, almost pleading. "Let's not be hasty. Maybe we pressured you too much. Perhaps some criteria can indeed be revised." Lyra looked at her in surprise. This was a new Alla Petrovna, with a smile instead of a contemptuous grimace. "After all, you scored the highest," she continued. "That means something, doesn't it? Dennis chose you for a reason?" "Chose me," Lyra chuckled bitterly. "Like an item in a store." "Thanks, but no. You're misunderstanding everything." Alla Petrovna came closer. "The table is just a tool, a way to ensure you're compatible. A tool of control," Lyra clarified. "And I don't want to be the object of that control. Neither now nor after the wedding." "Well?" Alla Petrovna suddenly turned back into the Iron Lady. "If that's how you put it, then I'm afraid we're truly not compatible. Dennis deserves a wife who will respect his family and traditions." "Absolutely agree." Lyra nodded. "And I hope he finds one someday." After extensive therapy, she headed for the exit, and this time Dennis didn't try to stop her. He stood as if struck by lightning, watching his carefully planned future crumble. "You'll regret this," Alla Petrovna called after her. "Where else will you find such a man educated, promising, from a good family?" Lyra stopped at the door and turned around. "You know, Alla Petrovna, if you had compiled a table for evaluating sons, not fiancés, I think Dennis wouldn't score more than 50%, because a real man wouldn't let his mother control his life, and certainly wouldn't evaluate the woman he supposedly loves like a commodity on a shelf." With these words, she walked out, closing the door behind her. In the hallway, Lyra leaned against the wall for a moment, feeling her heart pound. She did it. She really did it. She broke off the engagement, defied this insane family, defended her dignity. Taking a deep breath, she went down the stairs and out of the building. The fresh evening air hit her face, and she took a deep breath, feeling the heavy weight on her chest recede. Lyra took out her phone, about to call a taxi, when she heard hurried footsteps behind her. "Lyra, wait!" She turned around. Dennis was running towards her, zipping up his jacket. "Please, let's talk," he blurted out, stopping in front of her. "Just you and me." "No mom, no relatives. Just talk." Lyra sighed tiredly. "What is there to talk about?" "Dennis. We've already said everything to each other." "No, not everything." He ran a hand through his hair. "I understand you're upset, and you have every right to be. But you have to understand, that table means nothing. It was just a precaution." "A precaution?" Lyra shook her head. "Against what? Against me suddenly not being who you thought I was?" "No." He hesitated. "It's just that marriage is a serious step. I wanted to be sure. And that's why you consulted with your mom." Lyra crossed her arms over her chest. "She knows best what kind of wife you need." "You don't understand." Irritation appeared in his voice. "Mom just wants the best for me. She always has. And that's why she controls your every step, every decision." Lyra looked at him with pity. You don't see how unhealthy this is. It's not control, it's care, Dennis argued. And besides, she's right about the wedding. We can't just cancel it like that. It's irresponsible. You know what's irresponsible? Lyra asked quietly. Marrying someone you plan to remake to fit yourself or your mother. I'm not going to remake you, Dennis exclaimed. I love you as you are. No, you don't. Lara shook her head. You love the version of me that fits your table. But I'm not a table. Dennis, I'm a living person with my strengths and weaknesses. At that moment, the apartment building door opened again, and Alla Petrovna came out onto the porch, her face contorted with anger. I knew I'd find you here, she said, quickly descending the steps. Dennis, stop humiliating yourself. If she doesn't appreciate what you're offering her, then she's not worthy of it. Mom, please. Dennis turned to her. I'm trying to fix things. Fix what? Alla Petrovna snorted disdainfully. What's there to fix? This girl has shown her true colors, selfish, ungrateful, ill-tempered. Don't talk about her like that. Dennis said unexpectedly firmly. Alla Petrovna froze. What did I say? Don't talk about her like that. Dennis repeated, straightening up. Lara is right. This table, this family council, it was all a mistake. Lara looked at him in surprise. Had he finally seen the light? A mistake. Alla Petrovna couldn't believe her ears. It was a mistake that we tried to help you choose a worthy life partner, that we wanted to save you from a wrong decision. No, Mom, Dennis said quietly. The mistake was that I let you decide for me, that I didn't protect Lara when you started evaluating her like a commodity. She deserves better. Lara felt something stir in her chest. For the first time in these 2 terrible days, Dennis was speaking like an adult, independent man. Denis Mikhailovich Telnov. Alla Petrovna pronounced his full name as if delivering a verdict. This hussy has completely muddled your mind. Lyra is not a hussy, Mom. A steely tone appeared in his voice. She is the woman I love, and I should have protected her, not subjected her to your analysis. Alla Petrovna paled, then suddenly, resolutely walked up to Lara. This is all you, she hissed, pointing a finger in her face. You're destroying our family, turning my son against his mother. I'm not destroying anything, Lara replied calmly. I just don't want to be part of what you consider a family. Oh, you wretch! Alla Petrovna couldn't hold back and raised her hand. The sound of a slap cut through the evening silence. Lyra reeled back, pressing her hand to her burning cheek. Dennis froze, mouth agape, unable to believe his eyes. Mom, he finally stammered. What are you doing? But Lara had already regained her composure. The rage that had been building inside her all these days finally found an outlet. Without thinking, she pushed Alla Petrovna hard enough for her to lose her balance and, flailing her arms, fall into a puddle left by the day's rain. Lyra. Dennis rushed to his mother, but she pushed his hand away. Don't you dare touch me, Alla Petrovna screamed, trying to get up. Her impeccable suit was stained with mud, her hair disheveled. You chose this fury instead of your own mother. I didn't choose anyone, Dennis said tiredly. I just wanted you not to fight, for everyone to be happy. Happy, Alla Petrovna finally got up, dusting off her ruined clothes. Look what she did. She disgraced me, humiliated me. Lyra took off the engagement ring from her finger, which only a week ago seemed like a symbol of happiness and love, and now felt like shackles. Here, she held out the ring to Dennis. I think you should find a more suitable candidate, one who will score 100%. Dennis stared at the ring, not daring to take it. "Lyra, please." His voice was pleading. "Let's not make a rash decision. We can fix everything." "No, Dennis," she shook her head. "Some things cannot be fixed. You can only accept and move on." "But I love you," he said softly. "Maybe," Lyra smiled sadly, "but not in the way it needs to be, and not the real me." She placed the ring on his weakly open palm, and at that moment, Alla Petrovna lunged at her again. "Don't you dare!" she screamed. "Don't you dare abandon my son. You gave your word. You promised." Dennis tried to restrain his mother, and in the commotion, the ring slipped from his hand and fell directly into the mud. "The ring!" he exclaimed in horror, falling to his knees and frantically searching for the precious item in the murky liquid. "It's worth a fortune." Alla Petrovna also rushed to help, forgetting about her ruined suit. "Careful, son. Don't get your sleeves dirty." Lyra watched this scene with a strange sense of detachment, mother and son rummaging in the mud, searching for a ring that was supposed to symbolize love and loyalty. What an irony. "Goodbye," she said softly, but they didn't seem to hear her. Lyra turned and walked away. With each step, she felt lighter, as if a heavy burden was falling from her shoulders. She didn't know what awaited her, but she knew for sure that she didn't want to go back. Behind her, Dennis finally found the ring and triumphantly held it above his head. "Here it is," he exclaimed. "Lyra, But the street in front of him was empty. Lyra was gone, and this time, forever. 3 months passed. Lyra sat in a cozy coffee shop, reviewing the final edits to her manuscript. After breaking up with Dennis, she had finally found time to return to her long-held passion for writing, and to her surprise, her first novel had already attracted the interest of a small publishing house. The bell above the door jingled, announcing a new customer. Lyra looked up and froze for a moment. Dennis stood in the doorway. He looked around, noticed her, and after a second's hesitation, headed towards her table. "Hi," he said uncertainly. "Can I sit down?" Lyra nodded, closing her laptop. "How are you?" Dennis asked, sitting in the chair opposite her. "Good," she replied. "Working on a book. A publishing house is interested?" "Congratulations." He smiled faintly. "I always said you had talent." An awkward silence fell. "And you?" Lyra finally asked. Dennis sighed. "Normal. Moved to another apartment. Started working more." "And your mom." He winced. "We had a fight. I told her I wouldn't let her interfere in my life anymore." "She didn't take it very well." Lyra nodded, not knowing what to say. "You know," Dennis leaned forward, "I've learned a lot in these past few months. About myself, about Mom, about our relationship, and I wanted to apologize for everything." "I accept your apology," Lyra said simply. "I was blind," he continued, "and weak. I let Mom control me instead of living my own life, and I lost you because of it." "Not just because of that," Lyra gently countered. "It's not just about your mom. Dennis, it's about how you viewed relationships, marriage, as something that could be calculated, measured, evaluated in percentages." "I understand." He looked down. "And I'm not like that anymore. I've changed. I'm happy for you," Lyra said sincerely. "I thought maybe we could try again." Hope flickered in his eyes. "I know I'm asking too much, but I still love you. Lyra." She looked at him for a long time. Once, this man had been the center of her universe. She had imagined them growing old together, sitting in rocking chairs and holding hands. But now, "I'm sorry, Dennis," she said quietly. "But no, some things just can't be put back together, no matter how much you want them to." He nodded, as if expecting this answer. "I understand. I just had to try." Lyra smiled. "You know, I'm grateful to you." "Grateful?" He was surprised. "Yes, for the lesson. You showed me how important it is to value myself, to stand up for my boundaries, not to settle for less than I deserve." Dennis lowered his head. "I'm glad I was useful in at least that way." He chuckled bitterly. They fell silent. Outside, a light rain began, droplets drumming on the glass, creating a cozy background noise. "Well," Dennis finally said, standing up, "I won't take up any more of your time. Good luck with the book." He paused. "And be happy, Lara." "You be happy too," she replied. He nodded, cast one last glance at her, and headed for the exit. The bell jingled again, and he disappeared through the door, dissolving into the rainy day. Lara watched him leave, feeling a strange mixture of sadness and relief. One part of her life had just definitively closed, but there was so much new ahead. She opened her laptop and returned to her manuscript. The story was about a woman who finds the strength to start over, about the importance of valuing oneself and not settling for less than one deserves, about how sometimes the most difficult decision turns out to be the right one. Outside, the rain intensified, but Lyra didn't notice. She wrote, and with each word, she felt lighter. She was free, truly free.